I'm Ollie Pickup at London Tech Week, and I'm delighted to be joined with Bella Thornely, who is Managing Director for the Centre for Advanced AI at Accenture. What an amazing title.
I know.
I mean, when you go to the pub, when you go to dinner parties, what do you tell people you do?
Well, clearly I'm not very good at telling people what I do, because every time I meet some new family friends that my parents have spoken to, I seem to have a completely different role every time. So they clearly don't understand that. But fundamentally, I get the amazing opportunity of working with our clients on how to successfully deliver value from AI, modern AI, all the way from ideation into production and everything that's in between. And I think we'll definitely want to cover this, but everyone gets very excited about it as being a technology, but it's all of the other elements of how do you actually really deliver that value from both your business case, from the people, from the operating model, from all the foundations and the data that you need. So I get that great, huge scope of working with our clients to really unlock that for them.
And you've been kept very busy again at London Tech Week. I saw you speak last year, and I think you said you'd done 3 things so far. What have you done? What are the key takeaways?
We had a great session on Monday where Matt Prebelar, the UK CEO, was talking about our sort of generating impact, so the opportunity of AI in the UK. We had a number of various different clients on there really talking about their stories, their lessons learned, and obviously their achievements. Tuesday, I covered Agentic AI in FS. So actually probably building on quite a similar, last year was just Gen AI, and this year it was all about Agentic AI. So that was brilliant. And I also got to have a great time also with Invest AI in Manchester as well, really understanding about how we can drive that sort of economic growth in Manchester. And then today, obviously this, which is brilliant, but I also joined my colleagues, Kay and Nick, to provide a masterclass on human and AI, so the sort of the workforce and talent masterclass on that.
Let's take the Agentic AI in financial services first. And as you say, it has evolved. Agentic is the new word. What are you telling financial services clients now? How best attack Agentic AI?
So I think what's really interesting about FS as a whole is, especially in banking, they're actually really at the sort of frontier of AI. And some of the research, so actually that generating impact report that I just talked about, it was a real balance of only 1 in 10 of the sort of executives that we interviewed as part of that research said that they'd actually seen tangible impact on their P&L.
Is this UK based?
This is UK based on that. But what's really interesting is when you look at FS versus a lot of the other sectors, they've been spending more.
Yeah.
They've probably been wasting more,
right,
but they've also been actually really seeing more value than any of the other sectors. So
they've found the use cases, they've experimented and narrowed it down.
As I said, I think what they've really started to understand is it's not just about looking at it as a use case. It's about how they can really reinvent a process or a customer experience and journey and look at it more holistically. Because where we're starting to see being able to deliver that value is historically people have gone, I really want to automate this particular task because it's a very repetitive, boring task.
Yeah.
But actually what's really exciting about AI, and that's where you're going to get the value from, is going, well, how can I look at this process as a whole? What are the inputs and what are the outputs and what are the outcomes? So how am I still feeding up to my business KPIs and seeing AI as an enabler for that and actually looking at it a lot more holistically, rather than just a point task, and then changing not just the technology, but also the operating model, the people element, integrating that all together with their existing data foundations and tools. And we're really starting to see that in FS. So yes, I think it's 21% more budget has been spent in FS versus a lot of the other sectors, which were on average around 14. But to my point where I said 1 in 10, that was on average. In FS, 18% of executives say that they are seeing the tangible value. So you can start to see more money is being spent, but also more value is being delivered in FS versus some of the other industries.
So when you come back inevitably next year, you'll be able to, there'll be more use cases, there'll be more, good stories in FS.
Definitely. And do you know what I think is actually really exciting? This came up in the panel and Dan actually asked a great question is, in the news this week, there's obviously been a topic around moving away from token subsidies, which is obviously going to really start to increase costs in some of the businesses. For me, I think this is actually really exciting because I think it's going to force a lot of companies and FS to focus on why are they using AI and how are they linking that up to actual business outcomes rather than we're just going to do lots of pilots, lots of experiments. So it's nearly shifting that from that question of going, where can I apply AI to what is the tangible business outcome I can now deliver with AI as an enabler on it.
So perhaps, we're moving past the age of experimentation. And someone said this to me the other day. In FS, lots of businesses want to be the second mouse. They don't want to be the first mouse that gets caught in the trap. They want to see what their competitors are doing and then moving away and finding a way through. Do you think that's what I'll see?
I don't think that's as applicable in this because I think with AI, it's evolving so quickly. There isn't actually time to sit back and let others go first because I think whoever really captures the value is going to be miles ahead of anybody else. So I think for once, you can't just sit there and go, let me just check out what everyone else is.
Can't be a fast follower. You've still got to lead. Okay, well, in that case, what advice would you give for those who want to move from pilot to scale? Because there's lots of barriers there.
People are going to get very bored of me using this analogy. I like to use the enterprise iceberg. So if I can try and describe it with words, you've obviously got the sort of the tip of the iceberg that you can see above water, and that's the really exciting thing that everyone's like, AI, agentic, yes, brilliant. That's not the difficult bit. That's not what we would call the dangerous bit. It's all of the capabilities underneath that actually enable you to get that value. And for me, that's where you start as what we would nearly call those reinventors, where we're seeing the success, is they're looking at it as a big business transformation, not just a tech transformation. So they are going, do I have the data that I need? And I'm sure everyone's getting very bored because for lots of people, data has been a topic of conversation for years.
Foundation, it's got to be.
It's got to be. But what's great is use this focus of AI to actually get the investment and the focus on sorting out your data.
Yeah.
Yes, fine, it's been in your strategy for years, but often that's the bit where the funding suddenly disappears. So you still got to get your data right. It's around the governance and some of the responsible AI. FS, as we've just talked about, that's probably one of the execs call out as their biggest blocker. Obviously, with regulation over the years.
Open banking has helped on the other side, B2C.
Yeah,
so,
definitely.
So the mechanisms are there. Okay, let's move on to workforce, which is the other thing. So, how feasible is it in, let's say, 5 years that you have a workforce that is in FS, half AI agents and half humans? Do you think that seems to be the direction of travel?
I now can't remember who the quote came from, but it was like to some of the leaders, it's like, you are going to be the last leaders of a human, an all-human workforce, but you're going to be the first leaders of a human and AI workforce. That's actually quite cool.
That's cool. It's quite scary, I suppose, because lots of those leaders and certainly managers will be, in their kind of, 30s, 40s, 50s, and they might not be as AI fluent.
Yeah.
So what skills do they need?
Well, and I think it's really important, as you say, we need that leadership top-down sponsorship. You can't just be telling everyone to use AI and not actually be using it yourself. And for me, this is what we sort of talked about in the talent masterclass this morning as well. We need to think more about skills versus roles. Roles are fundamentally trying to say, what's my role going to look like in the future? I think it's only going to prohibit you from your ability of actually really getting the value out of using AI. I can't tell you, and I will caveat that, what those, the roles or exactly the skills are going to be like in 3 years' time. However, it's about using AI and agentic to put the human at the center. You often talk about human at the loop. This is a human at the center. You want to be able to use it. You still need to review it. You still need to understand the outcomes on it, but it's obviously going to be able to really allow you to the point of what skills. Use your critical thinking, use your judgment. What's going to become really important is emotional intelligence as well, because fundamentally the differentiator, every business is going to have an agentic solution and they're going to have AI everywhere. The differentiator is fundamentally going to be that human, and it's going to be that human having the right conversations with their customers, with their colleagues, with citizens, etc. B2B, they'll become the differentiators. And so that emotional intelligence and creativity is going to be really important going forward.
Totally. I'm really glad you've said that, because I talk about this quite a lot. I talk about the 7 C's. So the 7 C's are these human skills that become more important as the machines get smarter. And they are collaboration, communication, compassion, courage, critical thinking, creativity, and curiosity.
Curiosity, yes. Absolutely. One of the questions that came up today actually in our masterclass is like, how is your hiring process changing in Accenture? Nick Tate, who's one of our leaders in our talent, actually said an amazing thing is, historically, you've always had what we'd call hard skills, which might be the sort of the engineering, the coding, and then we've called them soft skills, which is like
But this is it. I mean, because they're called soft skills, they're supposedly pejorative, but these are going to be the most important skills.
They are going to become our hard skills. And I fundamentally think curiosity is what we're already looking for. When I'm hiring into my team, I want curiosity. I want someone that wants to learn, that is continually adapting, because we're no longer in a static industry or market anymore. Everything is going to continuously evolve. And if you're not willing to constantly be learning and constantly evolving and wanting to know something, then I don't think you're going to survive in this evolution.
There's a great quote that I often use by Baroness Minouche Shafik, and she's now chair of the V&A. She used to be president of Columbia University in America.
Yeah.
And she's actually chief financial advisor for the Prime Minister. She said, in the past, jobs were about muscle. Now they're about the brain, and in the future they'll be about the heart. And I really love that. But, in-person stuff is so important. How do you think it's gone here? Why do you keep coming to London Tech Week?
I'm so glad, because last year, I remember Freddie was making me say one word of this, and it was so difficult to try and describe this in one word. So at least it's now a full sentence. I mean, it's that human connection. It's fundamentally about bringing different people with different thoughts and experiences together to really try and solve, in some sense, the same problem. Is how do we drive value, both for us individually, obviously as business, but also importantly, I think what's been amazing is some of the speakers we've had here. We obviously had Prince William and everything. What's the societal impact, and how can we benefit society and the UK in like growth, etc., through technology? And we've just got all of these people here with that one drive of how do we really unlock that value. And that's why I like to come back. Every person, I mean, you and I have both been quoting lots of different people that we've heard this couple of days, and I think that's just fantastic, and that's why I'm here. I'm
always on the lookout for tech for good stories, and I think Prince William's, Homewood charity and this data lab that he's established, 430,000 people face homelessness, but they're using tech to kind of prevent that, and it's just incredible. It's great that Royal's got involved as well. You do your podcast as well, Bite Size, and you connect with people there. Tell people about that. Why should they listen?
Why wouldn't you want to listen? It's amazing. I mean, it's bite-sized for a reason. Obviously, we spelt it because we're a tech company. So if you're ever trying to find it anywhere, it's BYT. But that's one of the key things. It's small, sharp, really interesting topics, so you can listen on your commute. For me, this season has been brilliant. Obviously, we've talked, you mentioned about going from AI experimentation to scale. We've had some amazing people on this season, actually proper examples of reinvention.
Give us a flavour.
So we had Rachel come in from talking about the reinvention that they've done in customer services at VMO2. We had Matt Rich talking about the transformation in marketing at BP. But we've also talked about how the CEO, Andy, of Alteryx came in, about how they're using tools to help you set up those foundations and insights that you need for that scale. And I have from the NHS as well, as all of the amazing work. I think we can probably all say is that the NHS app, etc., has been a game changer. And that's still going back to what we were talking about under the surface of we're getting our data right and then being able to really unlock that value. So it's been a really good mix. And just building on that, we had sort of Good Things Foundation as well. And that was really talking about how do we make sure that we acknowledge that obviously AI helps with some social mobility now, the access to be able to do things like CVs. But we have to be really conscious that we are increasing the gap of digital isolation as well, but how we could potentially use AI, but also as businesses, we do need to think about that, is for those that don't have access on a day-to-day basis, is that widening the gap further? How do we help that side of it? So it's been really interesting, and obviously I'm going to push it. Please do listen. You can access it. I think what we've said, you can Apple, Spotify, YouTube,
All your favorite,
all the favorite
podcast
places, yeah.
platforms. Okay, so what advice would you give to someone who's just graduating, or perhaps they've left school now? Grad jobs in the UK have gone down 2/3 since 2022. ChatGPT came out in November that year. Maybe it's a coincidence, maybe it's not. But what should they be doing? How should they get ahead?
I think this goes back to that, your C's and that idea of the curiosity is, I actually think we've started to really see our grads, we've actually increased our graduate hires, say, from last
really?
year. So we've actually gone up, but we do really generally see the value in that, especially when it comes to AI. Most of the
Well, how are
grads
you
now,
training them up? Or what's the, how is their, early years experience changed?
they're
at
native
Accenture?
in this technology.
Yeah.
You were just talking about how we've got certain leaders who,
They're the
not
most AI
being
fluent
ageist, but they're
generation, yeah.
especially in their 50s, that this is a really new technology for them. Whereas you're getting grads that they've just grown up with this.
Yeah.
Like, I speak to some of the grads and they're like, oh yeah, my free time, I just built like a whole Minecraft game on my own with the latest Claude. And I was going, what? When I was that age, I was staring at a lava lamp and watching the bubbles slowly grow up. Like, they are amazing, and we're certainly shifting. Historically, if we've had sort of C-suite client coming in, it's often been, the likes of me as managing directors going in there and telling them, I'm bringing in grads now. Like, they are so native to this. For them, it's everything makes sense, and they really do see the value. We're not really having to train them in that. But to your point, we are having to make sure we're shifting the way of really getting them to present, to really understand what are the outputs. Yes, everything is at your fingertips, but if I took that fingertips away, I still need you to go and be able to speak to people, to manage people, and to explain what you've done.
Are you seeing that as a bit of a problem at the moment? Do they need a bit more skilling up there?
I think it's more of, as we start to see some of what we would call like some of those roles or skills merge a little bit more, is historically we've probably seen engineering as very much, you've had the sort of business, then you've nearly had the sort of, I'm sure POs would kill me for saying this, I can nearly classify it as a bit of a middleware of like a product owner speaking to the business, understanding exactly the outcomes and then translating that and defining that to the engineers, and then the engineers working together to live. That expectation, when we're talking about the hard soft, I can start already seeing that the engineers are getting closer and closer to the business.
Yeah.
But that's not been something that even our education system has probably been able to evolve fast enough of what we actually need. Yeah. So my point is, as long as you're curious and wanting to learn, I think actually we certainly, and I think most grads, is like, there is still that opportunity. They've got a great skill set. Yeah. We just now need to bring in some of that native capability and really bring in that emotional intelligence.
I love that. I think that is the way forward, and hopefully other companies can be as progressive as Accenture. Final question. What do you think you're going to be talking about when you return next year, and any other kind of key messages from this year?
Ollie, that's a horrible question. I do not want to be held to that, because if we do this next year and I was like, oh, it's going to be this.
Maybe it's more about the workforce.
What I'd like to talk about is actually start to see some of the data points that we've been talking about completely shifting. 1 in 10, that's ridiculous of not seeing P&L impact. Want to see that much higher. I would love to see that we are starting to see a bit of shift around the fear of roles and jobs, and actually people starting to see how this is valuable to them in the workplace and actually really enjoying using AI. That's what I'd love to be talking about, is the fact that we've shifted from, is AI going to replace my job, to being like, I have the most amazing role ever. I get to use all of my brain now and do exciting stuff. To your final point though, in order to get that, it's going back to sort of like, I think the 3 key takeaways. Businesses must link AI to their business KPIs. This is not about just you delivering AI for the sake of it. It's like, what are you trying to achieve? How is it just an element of you achieving that? It has got to be around reinventing. I'd like to not be talking about pilots or experiments next year. Exactly. This should be, we've just reinvented. Like, this is how, like, wouldn't it be great to just talk about how complaints is a completely different experience? My favorite thing would be next year is mortgages is no longer the bane of every person's life. And actually it's a whole new experience. People just want to buy houses all the time because it's such a good experience. That would be great, because it's been reinvented. And then finally, not thinking about this as a technology transformation, but as a business transformation, and how important it is to take your people on that journey and help get them involved in shaping what that looks like and what that new ways of working and mindset are.
Workers being told this big wave of AI is coming, and they're waiting to retire or they're waiting to lose their job. And on the other side, you've got AI optimists who are perhaps might be called sloppers. They're using it, they're deferring lots of stuff to, using AI. Perhaps their cognitive abilities waning, perhaps their decision making is not as sharp as it should be. I think we need to get to a third way, where there's sort of AI agnosticism, where you're properly using it.
Yeah.
So that's what I hope we're talking about next
Yeah.
year. But Bella, you've been fantastic. Thanks so much for
Ollie,
sharing
thank
your
you very
insights.
much. This has
I
been
really
brilliant.
enjoyed that.
Thank you.
Cheers.